The first Omen is directed by Arkasha Stevenson. It's her directorial debut for a feature anyway. She's worked on a lot of television shows and, of course, is a prequel to the original 70s classic, The Omen. And here, a young American woman is sent to Rome to begin a life of service to the church, but encounters a darkness that causes her to question her faith and uncovers a terrifying conspiracy that hopes to bring about the birth of evil incarnate. I had very low expectations going into this film. I had no context for the filmmaker's ability, having not seen any of their work. When it comes to horror prequels, sure, there are good ones. Ouija, Origin of Evil, Annabelle, Creation. There are examples of horror prequels that work out, but for the most part, they tend to be cash grabs and usually aren't that good, and certainly aren't better than the original. And also, the poster for this movie did something that's a bit of a red flag for me, and it's kind of a nitpick on my part, but I see it sometimes, and this is the very first time in my life that I've ever seen it, and it turned out differently, and that is that there is a quote on the poster that says it's the most terrifying movie of the year, except it's not actually a quote. It's not attributed to any critic or any person. It's just something the studio put on their poster. And whenever I see that, I always think, oof, probably going to be bad. The first Omen is about 666 times better than I thought it would be. I truly can't remember the last time I was this surprised by a movie. This film really understands escalation because it begins kind of like what we're used to seeing. In fact, a movie called Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney opened not that long ago, a film that I mostly enjoyed. This film opens in a similar way. You have a young woman who's very devout, who's about to take her vows for the first time and become a nun. And the people she's surrounded by seem to be involved in various things that aren't that great, but we don't exactly know why. We've seen this before. There are hands placed on shoulders, and people turn around because they were surprised by somebody they didn't know was there. Things along these lines happen for the first act of the movie. It's all skillfully made, and Nell Tiger Free, who you might recognize from M. Night Shyamalan's Servant, is terrific in this first act of the movie, and I was on board because it was helmed well. But as the movie progresses and practical effects are introduced that are very grotesque and gory, the film just got better and better and better. And a lot of this can be attributed to Stevenson's honestly brilliance behind the camera, the edit of the movie, and the fantastic score by Mark Corvin, who's a great composer that here has utilized new themes along with some of the most classic moments of Jerry Goldsmith's original score that I love to listen to. It's one of my favorite scores to write to. There are jump scares in the movie, but not a lot. Most of the scares here I wouldn't even really call scares. The movie is terrific at building dread and sustaining it. And that's one of the hardest things a horror film can do. That's about suspense. That's about a creeping feeling of fear that just won't go away. The sound design here achieves that wonderfully. You hear whispers coming from nowhere, strange sounds in the hallways. You feel surrounded by this darkness that's hanging over these characters. And this is something the movie does better than Immaculate, because while that movie was well made and well acted, the first Omen has a true feeling of terror that seems to be throughout every image. There are at least two moments in this film that made the hair on my arms stand up. One involves something coming out of the darkness, and then pretty much the entire last 20 minutes. I touched on this a little bit, but a lot of this is because Nell Tiger Free gives a truly awe-inspiring performance here. She has to go to so many places. There's a sequence in this movie that is reminiscent of the film Possession. If you've ever seen Possession, when you go to see the first Omen, you're going to know exactly the scene I'm talking about. A lot is asked of her here. She has to sell that innocence that she has at the beginning of the movie, how devout she is, how faithful she is. And the shift that she has to take from feeling that way to wanting to investigate more about what's going on behind closed doors, and of course other things that happen later in the movie that I won't get into, is gargantuan. She goes to every single place of the emotional spectrum here. This is an awards-worthy performance. It will never receive any major awards, but it absolutely should be in consideration for that. I haven't seen an actress go to the places she goes in this movie in a very long time. I was also very pleasantly surprised with how expensive this movie looks. It looks like they threw legitimate money at this. After having seen quite a bit of streaming horror movies lately, or films that were not given the budgets they needed, it was a true breath of fresh air to see a movie with a reported budget of $30 million. I don't know if that's accurate, that's what I read online. And you can see it in this film. It takes place in 1971. There are old cars everywhere, the costumes, the setting, the look of Rome. It all looks like a real film. And apparently there's a 35mm print going around, and I, of course, couldn't see it in Ohio. I would very much like to, and I hope that I can find a place that's showing it semi-nearby, because I would love to see that. This is the right way to do it when it comes to horror. There are scares aplenty, excellent performances, a budget that allows the filmmakers to do things that they wouldn't have been able to do before, and a filmmaker in Arkasha Stevenson who didn't squander that money. The cinematography, the costumes, and the production design are all brilliant. That money has been allocated to all the right spots. Honestly, guys, this is my absolute favorite feeling when it comes to going to a movie. Having no expectations and just having the rug pulled out from underneath you and feeling like it came out of nowhere. Now, you might not have that same experience now that I'm telling you this. You're going to go in with those expectations. I hope that some of you just went and saw it and had the same experience that I did, because I had no idea this was actually going to be even a good movie, let alone a great one. The first Omen easily is the best Omen movie since the first. And I have to see it a few more times, but I do think that the first one and this could stand side by side in respect of one another. Guys, go see this movie. This one is good. It really does deserve some money, and it's probably going to get stomped on by Godzilla. Monkey Man I'm seeing tomorrow. I'm very much looking forward to that. Guys, thank you so much, as always, for watching. Look forward to more videos very soon, and if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.